Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Health Made Simple Show. I'm your host, Dr. Bart. Today, we're going to dive deep into antibiotics. So really what we're going to do is I'm going to give you what I call one of my clinical insights. This is usually one of my most favorite, probably the most popular topics when I give you actual clinical insights of some of the people that I see. I kind of expose the case to you, and I walk you from kind of point A, why did they come in and see me, what's going on, what went right, what went wrong, and then how do we kind of manage it. With that being said, of course, I am not here to tell you to do anything medically. I'm not giving you medical advice. Rather, hopefully giving you information to better arm you down the road to make better decisions with your health, and always knowing this, that listen, health is simple. We are designed to be healthy. And if we get better and better at creating non-interference, let's not mess with the body, and we get better and better at listening to our bodies, we will often get to experience what it is like to have amazing, human bodies, amazing energy, mental clarity, physical attributes, all of the above. All right, with that being said, let's dive in. So once again, thank you for being here. Keep doing the thing, keep sharing out, keep spreading love. We appreciate all that you do. All right, so I'll set the stage here a little bit. This is relatively recent. I'm going to keep the names out of it. So, young lady, I believe early 50s, relatively healthy, physically fit, exercises regular basis, not overweight whatsoever, eats relatively good, probably better than most. Do we think there's still room for improvement? Yes, and I'll share with you where some of those improvements could have been. And what else should I say? Smoothies every day, like a good green smoothie every day with some protein, physically fit, tennis several days a week, all the above, like really living a good, healthy lifestyle, very conscious of what she puts into her body. Anyways, so the stage is set. She's healthy, has a healthy lifestyle, a little over her 50s. She goes away on a vacation down to New Orleans. And in New Orleans, she, like I think what most people do when they go to New Orleans, they eat, have some fun, maybe some cocktails, etc. When she comes back, she has a constant rounds of gut issues with lots of diarrhea. Goes to the doctor, and the doctor says, okay, I'm going to put you on some antibiotics. You have some type of bacterial infection in your gut. No real definitive, right? So not really anything diagnostic saying exactly what it was. Really no testing, just, hey, we're going to put you on this antibiotic and see if this helps. And I'm not belittling. That's exactly what it is. I asked if there was a lot of conversation leading up to it. Said no. She told the doctor her symptoms. Within probably 90 seconds, the prescription was made, and she walked back out of the office with her prescription for antibiotics to take care of her gut health. She went on the antibiotics. They didn't clear it up. They helped. They did not clear it up, and called back in, and they got another round of antibiotics. So that took place over about 2 weeks. The initial signs and symptoms go away. The diarrhea stops, and then shortly after, here's what happens. This is where it gets a little tricky. And folks, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because this happens every single day in my practice. This happens every single day across the country. But I want you to listen to the way these steps happen when we take antibiotics. And listen, I'm not anti-antibiotics, but I do believe 100% that antibiotics are way, way overused. They're abused. And I truly believe that they should be for situations like life-saving situations where we have infections that we can't stop. And if we don't stop the infection, that maybe something really detrimental or maybe even dangerous happens to the body. Do I think that's how most people are using? Not even close. I think we have a little stuffy noses, a little belly aches, our body's trying to clear something out, and we run onto antibiotics. And I was guilty of this. The majority of my youth growing up, I was on antibiotics, probably a good, 10, 12 years of my life, probably between the ages of like 3 and 17 in there. My mom was doing the best as she could. And every time I had earaches, and that was my thing when I was young, I had a lot of allergies, a lot of asthma, and I had this really, really bad earache, super painful. So my mom brought me to the doctor. Doctor put my antibiotics. So then for the next 40 years, I had gut issues, 40 years because of that. It completely destroyed my microbiome. And my point today in this case, and I probably should sharing this much more frequently than I do because I see them so frequently. Anyways, 50-year-old girl, assumably mostly healthy, usually no issues with gut, no issues with eating, whatnot. After she takes the antibiotics, about 2 weeks of antibiotics, for the most part, her symptoms cleared up. About 2 to 3, closer to 4 weeks later, she noticed that same diet, she started bloating after her morning smoothie. Wasn't really sure what that was all about. So she started bloating. Shortly after that, she started to gain weight. And I will tell you that this is someone who was very privy to her weight, very particular about her fitness and her overall physique, et cetera. And I'm all for that, folks. I like having standards. I think it's great that everyone has a certain standard when it comes to their weight. They know what it is. I think that holding those standards is good. So maybe a little vanity could be healthy every now and then. And in this scenario, 2 pounds gained after about the 4th week after being on the antibiotic, 4th, 5th week. After we get to about 8 weeks, and I'm saying 8 weeks very specifically because this is the time when I typically find a lot of the weight gain post antibiotics. And this is typically what it takes. Remember, folks, let me back up this a little bit. When you take antibiotics, you're going to kill. It's anti-life, right? So bio being life. You're taking an antibiotic to kill off bacteria that's in your gut. What also kills off your good microbiome, your good bacteria. It doesn't really have any discrimination. It just goes in there and kills things. Now that you have no bacteria or diminished some, right? Now we're in a little bit of a quandary because what does your body use to protect you, to build up your neurotransmitters? What does your body use to break down your food? We have a quandary here because what was designed to be there has now been killed off. So it's very similar to our grass. If you have a lawn outside or out in front of your house, what grows faster, the weeds or the grass? The weeds do all the time. So if you kill all the grass, what grows back faster? Not the grass, the weeds do. So it's very similar in the gut. So the bad guys grow back. And this is where we see the big imbalances, specifically things like weight gain, bloating, developing food sensitivities. And then also in this scenario, she ended up creating a oxalate intolerance. And I want to walk through all of those because they become very, very important. So remember, 7-8 weeks ago, no big deal. Smoothies every day, spinach smoothie, proteins, etc. Exercising, on point, weight hasn't changed in years. All of a sudden, it takes 2 rounds of antibiotics. A couple weeks later, not really sure because those symptoms cleared up. But now, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks afterwards, now we have bloating. Now we haven't changed the diet and we're gaining weight. Panic time. Yes, panic time. And I think some of you listening to this can relate to that. If all of a sudden you're doing the same thing you used to do, and now it's 2 pounds, it's 3 pounds, 4 pounds, and your belly's bloated, and you're no longer feeling good. And all of a sudden, the same food you've been eating for, X period of time that's always worked really good for you, now all of a sudden isn't. So this is what we did. First thing we ended up, I take the history, I figure out, okay, we had a moment that disrupted the microbiome. So we know we have to go back and start to restore that microbiome. And I'll discuss that in a moment. What did we do? What specific type of probiotic did we use? And could we have used during this? If I knew the information during it, for example, if you're listening to this and I know, and you know that you're going to go antibiotics, there's a very particular type of probiotic I used during that period of time. Anyway, so we did some testing. We did some microbiome testing, the stool sample. And here's what we found. There was 2 things that were completely annihilated. Folks, I can't express this enough that sometimes when we take antibiotics, you eliminate entire colonies of microbiome that may never grow back. 1 round. And I'm not even going to say what particular antibiotic this is because it is not particular to the antibiotic. And yes, there are some that might do a little bit more damage, but any one of them could kill off an entire colony, something that has a very specific job in your gut, in your microbiome. In this scenario, there was 2 that are wiped out. So there's one part of the microbiome called Akkermansia. And this is probably almost a foreign word to most of you. It was to me just up until about 3-4 years ago. And I'm sure others have known about it for decades, but I did not. When I started doing more and more gut research, I started hearing about Akkermansia being deficient in people. And this is what's interesting. If you are deficient in Akkermansia, the tendency for the people that don't have enough Akkermansia in their body, that type of gut bacteria, there's a tendency to have more obesity, to gain weight, just because you are missing a very specific type of microbiome, a bacteria in your gut. So here's what I don't know. So I'm just being clear here. I don't have a pre-test, so I don't know if this was wiped out before, but all I have is the post-test. I know there's 2 rounds of antibiotics, and then all of a sudden, weight gain comes, discomfort comes with food, and bloating comes with food. And there's another one here that I've been looking for, that I test on a lot of people at this point, and it's very, very important for us to understand. Some of you have heard this, and you'll be able to follow this conversation along. Some of you have heard, oh my goodness, like spinach is bad for you or kale is bad for you because they are high in oxalates. Well, although I'm certainly an advocate of high animal protein diets and whatnot, I've never really been against spinach or vegetables. I've never really been in the camp of saying they're trying to kill us. I understand that they have protective mechanisms in and of themselves that try to keep humans or animals, for that matter, eating them. But I also understand that they could be a healthy food. And here's the challenge. We are finding more and more people, not a few people, but a lot of people. I would probably say, and I'm just going to pull this out of my hat here and say probably 50% of the population have an issue with oxalates. And spinach, by the way, is super high in oxalates, and spinach and kale is to some degree, etc. Now, this young lady was having a spinach smoothie on a regular basis, absolutely loves spinach, cooks with it, puts it in her smoothies, etc. So there's another part of the bacteria that when we test with the stool sample is something called Oxalobacteria forminges. This is the microbiome part. This is the good bacteria, the enzyme, the bacteria, I should say, that breaks down oxalates. Hers was at 0, which means that now when she eats oxalates, she has a response to the oxalates, which means that we're gonna have some issues here. We're not gonna be able to break those foods down, hence the bloating, the inflammation in the body. Now we're gonna start to see systemic inflammation in the body not feeling good. Now we have two very, very important types of bacteria completely wiped out, null and void. If we don't know this information, probably going to run uphill. Initially, when I told her we're going to have to stay away from foods like spinach, it just blew her mind. She couldn't. It was almost as if we were arguing with each other. I'm saying, listen, you can't do it right now. Your body's not going to accept it. Even though when she was eating it was blowing her up, her mind couldn't wrap around the fact that this food that she's been eating for so long and she loves it, makes her feel good, all of a sudden now is detrimental to her body. And the correlation of bringing that to the antibiotic was very difficult because the antibiotics were now nearly 8 weeks ago. And this is what I see clinically the most. There are some people who take antibiotics and it wreaks havoc on their stomach right away. That's usually people who've taken antibiotics multiple times and their gut is just toast at this point and they can't handle any more. Folks, you are the ones who have to stay away from antibiotics. You got to find other routes. Then sometimes maybe you don't take that many antibiotics and you take one and you actually feel a little bit better. But because most of the detrimental stuff happens weeks, if not a month or two, I usually find about the 8-week mark is where we start to see bloating. We start to see weight gain. We start to see the trend in the diet change a little bit. And what does that mean? Typically at this point, because your stomach doesn't digest animal protein, so animal proteins and collagen is the hardest thing for us to break down. And when our guts are beat up and we've killed off some of our microbiome, the good bacteria, we just lean away from them. We think it's a good idea. You'll even hear people say, well, I don't eat red meat anymore because it just doesn't feel good when I eat it. Unfortunately, that's not good. That's a red flag. That's saying, hey, listen, I don't have the ability to eat and digest red meat. So this happens, but it doesn't show up right away. It typically happens down the road. So I'll often see this about the 8-week mark. And if they're not eating animal proteins, they're not eating burgers anymore, not eating steak anymore, maybe not even chicken or any of those things, what do they lean toward? Carbohydrates. And now all of a sudden we've switched from what could be the world's best food, something like a grass-fed burger or a piece of steak, to maybe the world's worst food, like more bread, pasta, muffins, crackers, etc. So this is the scenario that was taking place. So we have this young woman, 50s, I like calling that young. And she has now bloated. She has discomfort with eating, completely puzzled about what to eat, what not to eat. We have to have a conversation about getting everything balanced back out. We have to get all the bad guys out. We have to go hardcore. We have to make sure that we are not inflaming the system anymore. The bloating there's also inflammation in there. So we had to get hard on the diet. So we had to take out alcohol, which was like a wrestling match here, which was wild how some people literally defend their use of alcohol. And listen, if you're listening to this, understand it's a poison, period. And if you're trying to get well, and I don't care what it's from, a sinus infection, a wound on your arm, a gut issue, if you put poison in your body's then distracted from healing and you are going to have to deal with the poison. So we had a conversation. I hold my line the best that I can in a loving, kind way at this point, even if it's not in favor, meaning this. I'm willing to sacrifice how much my patients like me for my ability to help them to get well. And I say that from a place of saying, I didn't always do that. And I don't think most doctors do that anymore. I don't. And how do I know that? I know that I have patients that go and get their annual physical. They're clearly 30, 40 pounds overweight. And when they get the annual physical, the doctor will say, looking good, Bob. Just a little high on your cholesterol. Take these meds. Off you go. And then say a damn thing about Bob's 40 extra pounds. Why? Because it's not in favor. No one likes. It's not very likable if you tell someone, hey, listen, dude, you got to lose some weight. You're not heading in the right direction. It's very predictable. All right, so I digress. Let me go back here. So what are we going to do about this? So listen, if you've been on antibiotics or anybody you know going on antibiotics, and listen, you could have destroyed microbiome 20 years ago, 30 years ago. That inhibits, or when you eat spinach smoothies, you're still bloating up. Maybe it's kale. Maybe there's other food sensitivities. And this is real. This is the case for me. So I want you to continue to keep in mind that there are several things that could have happened long, long time ago, and you just never noticed. And really what never happened was the correlation between the antibiotic use and the damage it did to your gut and the after effects, whether it be the weight gain, the bloating, the candida that builds up. And that's one of my biggest concerns clinically, is that after antibiotic use, if we are not very strategically taking some very strategic next steps, unfortunately, that's when the problems can ensue. So here's what we did, and I'll mention a couple of things here. The probiotic I like to use the most, there's a lot of good ones out there, but especially during antibiotic use or right after, as an adjunct to antibiotic use, is something called Zymex from Standard Process. I'll make sure it's in the show notes today. We take they're wafers, they're kind of yummy, you can chew them. I take 2 times a day, and you go through 1 bottle of this minimum. That's just a minimum. So if you're just looking for the simplest, I don't want to do much, what do I do, just to give yourself a fighting chance of restoring some of it. And really what this is going to do, it's a particular type of probiotic that's going to help acidify the gut. And this is so important because we want to acidify the gut so the bad bacteria doesn't overwhelm. Frankly, what I'm talking about is candida growing up in there, eventually leading to things like leaky gut, eventually leading to things like SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth, or even fungal overgrowth. So we want to make sure that we acidify the gut and start to grow things back. In this particular scenario, knowing that she was also deficient in Akkermansia, of course, we're going to add that probiotic as well. But anybody out there, if you are going on antibiotics, whatever, coming up, you get a month, you get the elective surgery, you're going to go under, you're having dental surgery, they're going to put you on an antibiotic. So this is where we got to open up our minds and think, oh, well, wait a minute. I wasn't even sick, but I went on this preventatively or whatever it may be. So antibiotics are just handed out so easily nowadays. But if that is the case, and again, I'm not telling you not to take them, I'm going to encourage you to think of other options that you might have, but I'm not telling you not to take them. But if you are going to take them, be smart about it. Make sure that you are also protecting your microbiome. And the first thing I would tell you to take is something called Zymex. It's a wafer. Take at least 2 times a day for at least 1 bottle's worth, which will be a little bit more than 30 days worth. And that way you have at least a fighting chance to balance back out some of the damage. Now, the second part of this is making sure that you're also going to utilize a digestive enzyme. Probably the least sexy, but maybe one of the most important things that we're going to use when it comes to our overall nutrition and our overall gut health is a digestive enzyme. Specifically, I use one called Zypan. If you've listened to my podcast before, you're probably like, man, this is a broken record. You talk about this all the time. Yes, our ability to digest our food, but also protect our gut starts when what we put into our mouth. So if we have we take some Zypan, which is digestive enzyme, gets into our gut. We help acidify the gut. Yes, folks, we want acid in our stomach, not alkaline. We want acid there. So when things come in, we can break things down and kill them. And therefore, as they move forward and move down into the small intestine, they're broken down properly. We're not letting bacteria and whatnot get into the small intestine. When we take antibiotics, we are killing off that microbiome. And now all of a sudden we change the pH. It's also part of the reasons of why and how it becomes harder for us to digest our proteins. So with that being said, Zymex becomes your primary probiotic to reintroduce once you go on an antibiotic. And for someone like myself, I haven't been on antibiotics in probably, a decade or two. Yeah, I grew up with them. And so I cycle in different types of probiotics. And I'll have that conversation or that podcast at a different time. But even if you've if you've been on probiotics in the past, I'm sorry, antibiotics in the past, you could have created damage. How would you know this? Probably the only clear way to know this would do a microbiome test. I'm sorry, a stool test, which tests for your microbiome. The good news is they're not perfect now, but they are way better than they've ever been. And the data we can collect from there, for example, when we test for Akkermansia, if you have that and it's defunct or devoid, folks, I'm telling you, I would say at least 40% of the stool samples that I run come back with almost no Akkermansia available, which means we're killing it off. So a lot of people are having harder times. And I'm not saying it's the reason people are gaining weight, but there's certainly a contribution there when you don't have the right microbiome. And I know we're looking in all these different directions, the GLPs and all this stuff, but truthfully is that if we put the right stuff in our body has so many tools to manage everything that comes in. But if we lose those tools, it's like being a framer and you don't have a hammer, you got a problem. So we got to make sure we have the right tools in our gut microbiome, our bacteria in our gut. Those are our tools. All right. So hopefully this clinical insight has, inspired you to maybe take some better decisions or make some better decisions down the road. If you are going to be on any type of antibiotic, don't guilt yourself. Don't beat yourself up and just say, all right, what am I going to do to counterbalance this? Taking the proper type of probiotic, which I believe is something called Zymex, one wafer 2 times a day, fantastic. And then do that until at least run through 1 bottle. You might stay on it longer than that, but at least 1 bottle. And then also incorporate a digestive enzyme. My favorite in the market is something called Zypan. If you are interested in doing a microbiome test, I'll put the link below. You can just call our office. We can send it out to you. It's an at-home test, which is pretty cool. You do the test, they're easier. I know we would think a stool test are a pain in the butt. No pun intended there, but nonetheless, it's pretty simple to do. And the results come back, and then we can sit down and cover what those mean to you. All right, with that being said, folks, keep doing the thing. Keep raising up, keep leveling up. Make sure you're taking deliberate action for your mind, your mind, your body, your overall wellness. Y'all be awesome.